So the obvious place to start would be with how you're coping with the lockdown, you know, how you're getting through this difficult time.
Okay, so like I said a moment ago, I think it's important for everyone to kind of mourn the fact that they had all these plans which are now completely thrown up in the air and you can't do them. And I think it's important to do that before you sort of move forward. But I have found quite a sort of positive space where, I don't know, I think to be in a sort of state of fear is really unhealthy. So I've just tried to be overly positive and creative. And I have kind of found a way of sort of, I don't know, doing other things that I would never have had time for. So I'm kind of enjoying it in a weird way. So
what kind of things are you getting up to then?
So some people might have known that I was sort of running workshops. Obviously, we did one together, which was really successful. The 3 girls who actually came to the one that we did together, they said that your images all got them accepted by agencies. So I thought, okay, how can I do this and adapt and do it online? So I've actually got 20 models or girls who want to be models who I'm now coaching online, or we just message every day. And instead of seeing them face to face, we're just doing everything over the phone. And that's taking up a lot of time, as you can imagine. So that's been a great start to sort of keep me occupied.
Do you find yourself when you're planning those sessions or those conversations that you're almost educating yourself at the same time on stuff that you didn't realize you knew?
Yeah, weirdly, I kind of sort of found a new appreciation for myself, because I sort of thought, oh, am I good at anything other than modelling? But it makes you realise how much stuff you have learnt from maybe doing it the wrong way, or sort of thinking you knew what was the right way to go about sort of finding the right photographers or how to get accepted by agencies. And I've kind of realised that I know an awful lot, and I do actually have a lot to give. So yeah, I've definitely learned a lot about myself and about what I actually do know.
One of the things I found with teaching, especially early on, was the amount of people that would try and bleed information out of you sort of online before they would commit to a workshop or they would commit to any kind of tutoring session. So I'm not going to try and do that. I'm not going to try and get information out of you that you don't want to give, because obviously there has to be some kind of benefit to the knowledge that you're passing on. But just roughly, sort of what's the kind of things that you're talking about?
That's so funny that you say that, because I have so many people who say, oh, I've heard that you're doing mentoring. I'd love to sign up. Can you just tell me some of what it includes? So I'll tell them, and then they'll say, oh, okay, so how do you do that? And I'm like, well, sign up and I'll tell you.
Yeah.
But basically I go through how I get my work freelance wise, who to avoid, who to work with, what to charge for freelance work, what you can get away with at the beginning, and just sort of good sort of ballpark marks on what you can charge when you're starting out. Because I think some people get very over the top too quickly. What images to use to get accepted by specific agencies, a lot of contacts of people high up in those agencies, which they wouldn't be able to get otherwise, grid girl work, Monster Energy girl work, how to pose, how to sort of have that self-confidence that you can call yourself a model. Like if you've been doing it, a lot of people, they're sort of scared to say it because they've only done sort of 6 months worth of shoots and they're scared to sort of put it in their Instagram bio or something. I'm like, well, you have to let people know so that they can approach you. Anything from, what else? How to get sort of Instagram collabs. So how sort of email templates and how to word it, just everything that I've made a mistake with as well, so they can avoid doing that. I just think there's so much. And also just the fact that they can ask any questions. So if there's something I've not thought of, they can come to me and I'll give them honest advice about how I've dealt with it in the past.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's underestimated about having someone teach you a skill is that quite often the purpose of that person teaching you is not just to show you the right way to do things, but to help you avoid all of the stupid things that you're inevitably going to do if someone isn't sort of guiding you with their perspective in hindsight.
Yeah, I think in many ways they can almost get to where I have got much quicker because they're avoid routes that don't work that I thought might have.
Yeah, and it's a case of I think as well with your world, isn't it constantly changing with social media and stuff? So it's hard to always know the best way to navigate things. Things seem to switch up so quickly with what's popular.
Yeah, definitely. That's almost one of the things I enjoy about it, and maybe one of the reasons why it's been so easy for me to sort of adapt to this new life that we're in at the moment, because you do have to sort of stay on top, stay current, and stay aware of, what's cool and what's not cool, and sort of what's acceptable to act like as a model or an influencer at the time.
One of the things I struggled with teaching over the past few years, and more so as time's gone on, is when you have someone that doesn't want to adapt, or someone that they basically want to pay you to tell you you're wrong. Have you encountered much of that, and do you know how to deal with that?
Funnily enough, only recently. So at first, it is usually people who just want to suck as much information out of you as possible, which is what I want them to do. I mean, there are some people who utilize me much more, and they'll call me for anything they think of, whereas there are more shy people who won't. And I try and encourage them to ask as much as possible. But I did recently have one person who was almost questioning everything I said. And I was like, well, you've paid me to tell you my way. You don't have to do it my way. I'm just showing you what worked for me. But if you want to sort of have your own version of it, then that's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to challenge me. Just use what I give you and make it your own. So yeah, that was a bit of a bizarre concept, but I suppose there is always one. And it kept me on my toes and made me sort of swap a few things around of how I did stuff. So I guess it just made me learn from it. But yeah, can't wait for their time to run out.
It's something I've encountered probably a handful of times, where I've had someone ask me how to do something, I explain how I do it, and then they tell me that that's not how they would do it. And my answer to that at first was like to panic and to feel like insecure about it and to worry about it. And then I told myself one day, I was talking to Jamila, and I told myself one day, they're paying me to tell me I'm wrong. Most people won't pay me for that privilege. They'll just tell me I'm wrong. So if they want to pay me to tell me I'm wrong, then that's their choice. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's tough times. I'll take money for anything.
So are you building up like an exit plan for when this all kind of dies down and you can get back out there? Do you have an idea of a few things that you wanted to do? Or
in terms of the fact that I'll have to... Sorry, go on.
You'll be allowed to leave the house will obviously be the first wonderful part of this dying down, is that you'll actually be able to leave the house. Do you have anything that you kind of backburnered for a long time, but now because you have had that withdrawal from doing your job, that you can't wait to get back out there and do it? Are you looking to get back out and to do more photo shoots, or is it, I know you do a lot of presenting.
I mean, I think already I was kind of so focused on work anyway that I was already doing everything that I wanted to do. So I kind of just hope that everything that I've had to scribble out in the diary can just be rearranged, postponed, or what have you. But interestingly, it has made me question, because at first I was really, really upset about some of the jobs that were cancelled, where I still sort of sometimes dance in clubs alongside the famous rapper or DJ they've got. And I thought I really enjoyed that. But where I've had to get my head down and do all this planning, and I spent more time sort of in my journal and my laptop, I thought I hated that world. And I kind of convinced myself that I always wanted to be out there doing something like shooting or dancing. But I've realised that actually I do have this massive love for teaching and kind of creating my own content and being in control of it, instead of just being the person who's almost like the puppet for someone else's vision. So what it sort of made me realise is I definitely want to start a YouTube channel, and I always kind of would just be sort of a little a featured person on someone else's thing, but I want to do my own thing now for definite. So that's something I'm going to start planning. I mean, I can do that without going outside, obviously, but there's only so much content I can create of me kissing my cats. So yeah, I can't wait to get out there and do that.
Your ugly cats. When it comes to teaching, one thing I actually really don't know, we've known each other for I think about 6 years. So the one thing I don't know is why you've ended up doing teaching. Because I remember we had a conversation after a workshop of mine in sort of London way. And on the way back, you were telling me about how you were thinking about doing this kind of thing. And we had a pretty long chat about it. But I don't know what kind of spurred you on with the idea.
Well, it's really funny that you should ask that, and I don't know if you actually already know the answer to this question, but it was completely down to you, and I'm not just saying that, I'm honestly not. So obviously I was a model on quite a few of your workshops. I mean, it must be, 20, maybe more, I think?
Yeah, 20, 25, it's in that ballpark.
So watching someone like you who I mean, you've got a lot of different life experience, and I know that you've had all different kinds of jobs from, I think you were like a chef or a baker at some point, and you've done music.
Yeah.
So, but you haven't sort of done the academic route of, oh, I'm a teacher. So I kind of thought you had to always have some kind of qualifications to be able to teach other people. But what you made me realise is if you've done something firsthand, then that's better than any sort of bit of paper telling you that you can do it. So that gave me the confidence to think, okay, actually, I have got something to give. But also, you actually were the one who suggested it to me. You said, oh, you should do workshops. You did, yeah. On the way back from the Kingston workshop, it was you who actually gave me the idea.
Oh.
So I think sometimes when someone, obviously I respect you and your work ethic and I respect your opinion. So when someone who you sort of respect their opinion says you could do this, it kind of gave me the push like, oh, okay, I can. And obviously the fact that I've got no income from my shoots anymore. So what else am I going to do?
I will say for absolute transparency, I do not remember that at all. It's not a case of me trying to set something up there. I don't even, I remember two things about that car ride. On the way there, your mum saying on speakerphone that she'd got laid the night before. And on the way back, I insulted someone's shoes who was walking past our Ugg boots, and you were filming something for like Snapchat, and I showed up in your Instagram story just insulting some poor person's horrible shoes.
I mean, it was deserved. They were awful.
They had those Uggs where they're walking like on the inner ankle of them, so they look like they're trying to escape.
They did.
It's like my most hated thing, that and Crocs. I can't stand it.
I don't know. I can see you in Crocs.
No. Honestly, I'd rather get Corona than have Crocs.
Please make that the soundbite for this.
I think I might just make it the motto of my website from now on. With regards to the Instagram stuff, something that I've spent pretty much every single podcast not understanding in the slightest is social media and the way that it's kind of changed the culture of especially younger people and the way that they interact with each other and how they make money. So how did you start making money from Instagram? Like in a rough sense, how did that start? Because I can't even begin.
So I obviously already kept my Instagram very up to date. So I always had quite good content because of all the shoots that I do. So already my followers were building up quite quickly from that. And then a bit of reality TV helps with a blue tick and then a few more followers. So obviously brands can see that I have got an audience. And I think people started approaching me at first always offering the free collabs, which at first I sort of took full advantage of. But then I spoke to a few people who were doing it bigger and better than me and asking them what they were charging. And I think you just have to have the confidence in yourself and the audacity that if you have got a large audience and you know the specifics, I've got a business Instagram, I know who's looking, I know who's female, who's male and what age group, like it is the perfect place to advertise fashion or vaping or what have you. So I just had to have the confidence to say, actually, I should be charging for this because I'm creating good advertising material, you could put it. You know, I don't just take a crappy photo, I put a lot of effort in. So it was just, I had to start saying, well, actually, I will do that for you, but I'm going to charge X, Y, Z. And yeah, it just went on from there, really. And I think when brands start to see you working with more brands, then more approach you. And then you have to be proactive. So I obviously go through and find brands that I do actually love, contact them, and you know, I ask them. I don't wait for people to come to me. Interestingly, since lockdown, obviously I've had a lot more time on my hands. So in the morning with my morning coffee, I might just message 70 because not all are open to collabs, and yeah, just see who comes back really.
70.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't copy and paste either because Instagram don't like it. So
I didn't know that. I do not do anything like that, so I would not know. What happens if you copy and paste? You get told off?
I think you can get away with about 10 every half hour, but if you do more than that, they will block you from messaging people for a day or sometimes up to a week. They can be pretty harsh.
Jesus. So for the sake of my own amusement here, can you just explain to me how you work with vaping brands?
Okay, so I am specifically only working with a sort of umbrella brand called Red Liquids. So initially one of my agencies, SBJ Management, she has the client. So they booked us to sort of travel all over the world. We went to Bahrain, Israel to be promotional models on the stand for that brand. But then the guy who owned it said, "Oh, I see that you're very active on Instagram. I know nothing about social media. Do you think you could create some video content for us and then actually honestly review some of the flavors of the liquids?" And so it just kind of built up from there. And because they've got so many smaller segments of their business, so a certain type of vape or a mod and different types of nicotine, some without any, they just kind of started sending me stuff all the time, and then I'd honestly review it and then put it out there. So yeah, it just kind of was a natural progression from the modeling.
Well, since you say honestly review it, how hard is it from a ethical standpoint to review stuff when you're being paid to review it?
I mean, in the beginning, I lied often, and I would also sort of take up the things that supposed to make you skinnier, all that tea stuff that I know you're not a fan of. And I did
the diarrhea tea.
I mean, I can't say that that's what happened to me, but if you've tried it, then
there's a very famous influencer's story. I'm pretty sure it actually made a couple of fairly big magazines about how she was advertising. I can't remember what it was called, but it was a kind of tea, and she shit herself on a train super hard because it was basically a diuretic and a laxative, and she did not know that. And it basically just sheds water weight really quickly. So you look thin for the 12 hours after you've had it, and then you come close to death and you drink some water and you're back to normal.
I mean, forget the moral standpoint. That's just fucking embarrassing. Like, I couldn't deal with that. But luckily, as I've kind of grown, I can turn down the things that I know I won't be a fan of. And I do actually say to a lot of brands now that I won't sort of accept the payment, or if I have, I won't spend it until I have actually tried it. And then if I don't want to put it out there, because I do have a moral compass, and I do feel responsible for, putting something out there. Because I know that I think that there are a lot of girls who look up to me. So I'm not going to, stitch them up, so to speak. So I am careful with being honest.
So when you say there's a lot of girls looking up to you, who are you looking up to?
I mean, I look up to, in the model world, I really like Emily Ratajkowski, which I think we've actually talked about her before. But weirdly, I like people like Joe Rogan. So I admire how he sort of changes the direction of what he does quite easily, and he uses the things he's learned from other jobs or things to benefit him in his new thing. So obviously he's all about the podcasts now. I don't know if you ever watch any of his, but he always brings his knowledge from his past stuff to the table, which I admire the way he does that. And that's something I try and do.
I think something with Joe Rogan that's made him so popular, and something that makes it very earnest, is the fact that when he doesn't know something, he'll admit it. Yeah.
And I also love the way that he doesn't, sorry to say it, but like bum lick his guests. If he thinks they're wrong, he's very polite, but he'll be like, "Oh no, I don't agree with that." And he doesn't kind of, mollycoddle them or whatever the saying is. He's very sort of straight with them as well as being friendly. So I like that he keeps his opinions, and he doesn't sort of just agree with someone because they're a big star that he's got on the show.
It definitely helps when you're so well trained in beating the shit out of people that you don't have to ever really worry who sat across the table from you to tell them that they're wrong. True. That never hurts. I mean, one of the things with Joe Rogan that's really cool is obviously he's a stand-up comedian that has a very successful history in that. He's a TV presenter that has a very successful history in that. He's a podcaster, probably the most successful ever. And he's obviously a commentator for the UFC, where he's incredibly prolific because of his private life, where he does so much stuff in martial arts. So he's just got a fantastic work ethic, I think.
Yeah, I mean, everything about him I love. And I love that he stands by stuff that won't be considered popular to a lot of people. He doesn't seem scared of a backlash, and he'll make jokes. What I hate about comedy at the moment is that you have to always be careful about what you're going to say, whereas I don't think that he's adopted that new nature that a lot of us have, and he will stand by the fact that something can be a joke and it can offend people, but it's just a joke.
Yeah, I think that he's I think he's older than a lot of people realise as well. And that helps because he's got a little bit more perspective in sort of the way life goes and how phases come and go, and people have certain opinions, and then those opinions disappear fairly quickly because they're only there for the sake of, you know, making sure everyone else in the room agrees with them and they feel good about themselves. He's not bothered by that because he's seen it come and go for so long.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that's something that's happened to me as well, because me and Joe Rogan probably have that in common. I reckon I'm a lot older than some people think as well, if I do say so myself.
You're, off the top of my head, you're 41?
And I used to be a man.
And you used to be a man, yeah. Other than that,
no, but I'm actually going to be 28 in May. So, you know, I am getting on.
In May?
Yeah.
When's your birthday?
27th.
Oh, that's all right. That's fine. It's nowhere near mine.
Sure.
So you're the 6th of May.
Oh, so you're not a Gemini then?
No, I just feel... no, none of that. Let's not even approach any of that bullshit. But I was just... what I was really worried about was that just no one would care about your birthday if it was too close to mine. But now I feel a little bit less guilty. One thing that's obviously been consistent with me and you is we've sort of gone through phases of not working together and not speaking to each other so much where we're both busy. And then we'll have like a really mad year-long spell where we'll work together and so on. I think one of the things that's worked for me so much is just your... the fact that I just think you are someone that I can hire, you come in, you do a job, and I know that there's going to be little to no drama.
Yeah, no, I think that's, yeah, I love that about you as well. I think we always know where we stand with each other. We'll have a laugh, but we'll get the job done no matter what it is, whether it's a shoot or a workshop or anything. Yeah, it just always goes smoothly, doesn't it?
How often do you think that that's kind of underestimated by models, where they obviously have the raw materials in the way they look and maybe they have the social media presence, but they can create quite a bad reputation for themselves where they're not easy to work with or they're unreliable, or, you know, is that extra bit as important as the rest of it?
I'd say more so. Absolutely. I mean, almost every other person could this day and age be a model. So it doesn't really come down to how attractive you are anymore. I think it is all about the fact that it is a customer service industry in many ways. So, you know, if you're professional, you turn up on time, you know that you are your brand, so you're not creating drama on social media, you're not saying stupid things that could sort of relate to, I don't know, something racist or something when you're drunk, because I think a lot of people do that. I've seen so many silly things that have been said and then models never work again because they were just stupid to put it out there. I think it's really, really important. I think one of the reasons why I have been able to work in the industry for so long is that people know that I will be on time and I'm not going to have some family drama or some boyfriend drama that's going to affect the job. I think, yeah, it's definitely, I'd say it's above your looks, definitely.
And do you think that that's something that can be taught or you can learn? Because I'll pretty much put my line in the sand and say I think that there are just some people that just cannot act professionally, act maturely. And maybe it's a result of having spent many years of their life being praised for their looks, that they think that that's the be all and end all of what they have to do to be successful. Yeah,
and because of that, the fact that people who are often in the modelling industry have had that kind of constant validation, and that might be why they do it. I think that it does tend to be something where you find a lot in this industry. So I don't know, I was always kind of brought up very grounded by my mum, so she would never sort of make those things of high importance. So I don't know if it can be taught, to be honest. Like if people ever sign up to my coaching and I get that kind of vibe from them, I've just said, I don't have enough time to take anyone else on, because I mean, I don't have the time for it, to be honest. I mean, I'm glad there are a lot of people like that, because I think that's what's allowed me to get on so well, because there are so many other people who, when I'm on shoots, the photographers will say, I just can't work with them again because of their attitude or the diva thing, or them thinking that they're owed something just because they're pretty.
Yeah. There's an old phrase which I absolutely love, which is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yeah, and it's been like that for me with everything. Like even when I was at uni, I wasn't someone who could kind of just get by on the fact that I was intelligent. I had to work really, really hard and put the hours in because I wasn't actually that good at it. So I think I've sort of been taught that from almost everything I've done.
You said earlier about how pretty much anybody could be a model these days. Why do you think that's changed?
Well, obviously there has been the whole movement where it's not a specific body type anymore. It's not just the really tall, skinny people. And because of the social media thing, you don't have to be a proper model. You can have any kind of look and make it work. I mean, unfortunately, I do feel like the negative of that, it means that a lot of people who have had a lot of surgery can now model because of the whole Kardashian look that sort of took off. But I do think it's a good thing. I mean, why not open up the industry to as many people as possible? If people are willing to work hard, then I think it's a positive. But yeah, I just don't think there's a specific typecast anymore. You can make anything work if you're willing to sort of put the effort in. And I think a lot of people look up to people who can just be confident in their own body type. So a lot more curvy girls or shorter girls who might not have been able to. I think now, because you can just upload a photo of your face, you know, you can sort of be any body type or look, and you'll get away with it.
Yeah, I think social media opens up the ability for people to find you without the need for an agency or magazine clippings or some kind of publication, or, you know, some form of publicist that's pushing it out for you. You can be your own publicist. One thing I'm not a particularly big fan of is the idea that people should be told what they find appealing. So the idea that you should be, you know, it should be almost legislated that you have to like every single body type, and you have to like every single face type, and you have to like every single styling choice, and, you know, everything that comes in. From a subjective point of view, there is no longer the ability to not like something, because not liking it would be unfair to that person. That person has the right to be liked. I think you have the right to be seen. I think you have the right to the same opportunities, but that doesn't mean that you have the right to the same success.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And I think, I mean, if people kind of have an opinion and they sometimes write something negative about what they think of me on my social media, because I'm putting myself out there and encouraging sort of comments and opinions, it's not something that I then lose sleep over. I mean, if someone trolls me, I couldn't give less of a shit. I think, okay, yeah, you're entitled to an opinion and I've put myself out there, fair play. So I think people just have to man up a little bit.
Yeah, it's one of the most bizarre parts of social media. It's one of the things I've had the hardest time getting my head around, is that when people don't like something, they spend more time on it than when they do.
Yeah, it's so true.
It's got to be a miserable way to live.
I think some people, they just don't have, they're not getting any attention, and they've noticed that if they say something negative, then they get more attention than from that person or that minority than if they say something positive. And I think people just need to remember to not give that to them, and then it will stop.
Yeah, exactly. The thing that stands out the most for me with the current sort of way that modeling's going with social media and sort of the expanse of acceptable, you know, the almost a drive for equality throughout body types, like you said, and so on. The one thing that stands out to me, though, is that the thing that's getting lost in the mix is how hard some people do work to look a certain way. And it's almost being demeaned on the idea that because it's part of a previously accepted body type, it's now somehow taboo to look a certain way that used to be sort of the way you were supposed to look, quote unquote. And yeah, the self-esteem movement has belittled the amount of work it takes to get yourself in shape, and, you know, to eat properly and to be healthy and you know, to maintain a certain physical condition. I think that's one of the sad things about it, is that it's almost swung completely full circle and it's now going the other way.
Yeah, and I think we have kind of touched on this before, and I think my opinion might have softened slightly than when we've kind of discussed similar stuff in the past, much to your dismay, I think. I don't know. I
Traitor.
think maybe a lot of my family, I've noticed, constantly putting themselves down for their body type. And I think, although, like you say, I've maybe lost some of the appreciation that I work very hard, I'm very regimented with what I eat a lot of the time, not always. So I'm no longer sort of put on a pedestal for the fact that I work hard for that. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. I do think when I see a lot of people in my family sort of being more accepted for how they look because they've got role models now who are considered cool, who are, I don't know, people were still scared to say fat, but people in my family are, and they try and be healthy, but they don't feel as bad about themselves now because they have got role models who are considered sexy and happy and confident who are also fat. And I think actually I quite like seeing those people in my family happier about how they are. And I think that's a positive. So I'm happy to have less appreciation for that fact that I work hard to look how I do.
I think we disagree in the sense of the way in which the movements come about. I don't disagree with the idea that people should be happy regardless of their size. I think the problem is that we're still trying to use idolization as a tool for self-esteem. And I don't think we should be doing that. We should be developing people, or ensuring that people are developing themselves to make themselves something worthwhile, as opposed to constantly want to fit into a box that they've created in their own mind.
So you mean it should come more from within, and they shouldn't be putting so much focus on their outer looks anyway, and they should have the confidence because of what they bring to the table, intelligence, kindness, or some other way, instead of just finding a new role model who looks like them? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe this might be a male-female divide here, but I don't look at people on the front of Men's Fitness magazine and want them to be in worse physical condition because I am. I don't see how that raises anybody up.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good point, actually. I hadn't really thought of that, but I think because our society is so obsessed with, I don't know, like if I ever sort of ask my younger nieces or something of who they look up to, they'll kind of pick a celebrity with like the same hair color and the same eyes and who kind of looks like them, because it's almost like we're obsessed and forced to sort of find these role models who are similar to us. So I feel like as a society, we want to kind of look up to someone who's similar to us. Does that make sense? But ever so slightly better. I don't know, maybe that's something that's wrong with us as a whole, but I don't know how you unteach that.
Well, I firstly, I think that it does come down to men generally. This is, coming from a school where it wasn't perhaps the nicest school in the area. Men or boys generally didn't want to be the center of attention, because usually the center of attention was getting punched in the face. So you sort of made do with not always being the center of attention. Where I think societally, on both sides of sort of women's empowerment, it's just been a case of just constantly centering women to be under the spotlight constantly. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe people should be comfortable. And I think especially, I see this with the industries that I work in. Maybe it would be great if some people could be comfortable succeeding without being patted on the back the whole time, or everyone wants to be idolized. And maybe you should just be measuring yourself against yourself yesterday, as opposed to constantly trying to put a metric on your worth to people that you don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm the worst candidate for that, though, because I often wonder if a lot of my confidence comes from the fact that I am constantly praised by, not to be big-headed, but every time I do a shoot, because I do work hard and I know what I'm doing, I get a massive pat on the back and a really good review written to myself or on the amateur websites that you can use to do your shoots. Or I've constantly got girls saying, oh, I love that you put this out there. And I do wonder if, when I'm not doing this, or I don't have social media and that's all stripped back, I wonder if I will be as confident. It's something that I'm unsure of. So, yeah, that would be something I have to work on, I think.
I think the evidence to my point about it being, and I know obviously we now live in an age of about, I think it's about 75 genders now, or whatever it is. But if we stick to the patriarchal traditional two for a second, I think that when you look at when a man receives a compliment from a woman, he instantly thinks she's into him. That's a sign in a lot of cases of how rarely men get complimented for anything that they do on a peer-to-peer level. Whereas I think, obviously, if I go on your Instagram right now and I look at literally any picture of you, underneath it, there's going to be someone who talks in a way that would probably make my mind rot, saying that you're like a queen or you're vibing or something like that. There's just a constant stream of compliments coming in. So sort of you end up chasing that self-esteem as opposed to just being kind of comfortable within yourself.
Yeah, you're definitely right, because I've found that I can't even sort of compliment someone on their work if they're male. Quite often they'll be like, oh, okay, what are you doing Friday night? And I'm like, what? So yeah, that is a problem. But also, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't get giddy over sort of the comments I get or anything like that. I really do what I do and put out there what I put out there, because I want to be creative. I want to be in this industry because it gives me the freedom to do what I love. So yeah, I'm not too bad, and I don't sort of constantly chase it. So it's not an issue for me, but I do think people who are maybe younger, 18, are they constantly searching for that and chasing that? And then if something they put up doesn't get enough of those comments, are they then feeling shit about themselves? I do think it's a massive problem.
Are you, are you still excited to be a model day in, day out? Is it become a job yet? Is it still something you're passionate about?
I mean, obviously I do have the days where I've got the jobs which I've taken for cash flow, where I'm like, I can't bloody do this. I am clock watching and I'm like, oh. But although I say that, majority, I still think there's so many amazing creative people who do things slightly differently. Like, I love video work. Like, there's a few people I've been talking to recently, and we were actually booked to create the videos for this new bikini brand and stuff like that. And we were really vibing, and I was so excited. And there's still so many people I work with where I genuinely am feeling I love my job the whole time through it. So yeah, I'm still not sick of it.
What's the next transition for you? Obviously, like you said, you're turning 48 this year. Where do you see yourself sort of transitioning from here? Is it into the agency side of things, the brand side of things? Where do you see yourself going?
Well, I think my biggest selling point is the fact that I'm very happy being me. So I would like to think that potentially this YouTube channel could do really well, could get sponsorship from brands and the money from people who want to be sort of featured on there, whether that's clothing or whatever it might be. But I did actually get a new job this year in February, where I had all these dates booked in with this company called Amsterdam Real, where I was going to be the main presenter. We were going to travel around all these hotels that people might not have known about and just talk about all the selling points. And it was going to take up most of my calendar, and I was so excited because, as you probably know, like, presenting is the thing that I want to go into, but because of this whole situation, that has been put on the back burner. But I think now that I got accepted for something as big as that, I definitely want to push it even further, because obviously I do host Miss Swimsuit and sort of nights where people are showcasing their new product. I'm quite often booked for that. They're all sort of just to a small live audience, whereas this was actually going to be on the website, on telly, advertising. So it would have been the biggest thing I've done. So now that that brand wanted me, it's given me even more confidence to push that further.
Okay, so if we take your presenting work aside and we ignore that for a second, how many days a year do you think you spend like modeling or grid girling, or, you know, you're there not in a presenter sort of aspect? How many days a year?
So I shoot 4 days a week without fail every week. Okay. So I'm shit at maths. What would that be?
I want to leave you to work that out.
Oh my God. My phone battery will run out before that happens.
So let's say 240 days a year you're modeling.
Yeah. Is that what it
is?
Cool.
Let's go with that. So let's say 240 days a year you're modeling. How many of those would you still be modeling if you were not being paid?
Good question. Okay. I'd say, oh God, it's a bit of a depressing figure in many ways. I reckon, no, I've got to be honest though. It's a very small percentage when you say it like that. I mean, I do a lot of, I'll never get booked again after saying that, will I? I hope no photographers listen to this photography-focused podcast.
Sorry, none of them know you. It's fine.
It's a big percentage that I do for the money, definitely.
But what I'm kind of angling at is, to what extent would you continue if there was no money from it? Like, I'm not saying in the sense of like you were no longer popular or anything like that. I just mean literally, if it was the case that you weren't paid for it, how much would you want to do, or would you feel motivated to do purely off of your own energy?
I mean, there's probably about 10 people that I've worked with, and then 10 people that I want to get good enough to work with. So like, that's almost 20 people in the world only that I would want to shoot with and create content with, just for the fact that I love it. And that's just because there are so many negatives. Like, a lot of people I work with are still learning. So although I don't mind doing that with them, it doesn't set my soul on fire. I like people who have got a vision. They know what they want to create, and we're bouncing off each other, and it's new and it's fresh. A lot of people I work with, they do want to just do what they know works, and I've done it 1,000 times, so I can't lie. There's, it's about 20 people in the world that I would want to work with just because it's so fun to do it.
I think one of the things I want to try and do with these podcasts while we're all stuck inside trying not to murder each other is to kind of sort of shed a light on some people that maybe we don't know about. Maybe other people don't know that we're fans of, talk about inspirations and so on. So of these 10 people that you said you aspire to work with, do you want to give us just a quick idea of some of the names that you're talking about and why they inspire you, why you'd love to work with them?
Yeah, definitely. So firstly, a guy called Drew Buckler, and that's his Instagram name as well. I think from a quick Google search, you'd probably find his website. So what's quite nice about him is we live quite close to each other. And I think we worked together for the first time maybe 2 years ago. And he was just starting out and just kind of playing around with taking portraits and things like that. But what I like about him, it's majority of what he does is fashion focused. So, you're not having to take your clothes off, but he has improved very quickly. And I just think the way that he edits and the sort of vision he has for a good photo is amazing. Like there were times when we'd be walking around Arundel and he'd go, "Oh, go in that cafe," and through a window at a strange angle that no one had sort of thought of with me before. And also the way that he's adapting to the current situation. So I think he actually was sharing some work where a photographer was taking photos of someone through FaceTime in the city. And it was actually amazing. And I would have never thought like that. So he thinks outside the box. And what he also does is he shares a behind the scenes, which is also normally quite humorous, of how he created a shot. So there's one shot we took where there's this amazing light pattern on my face, and he was just using that thing that you get rid of the water with when you've got pasta.
Colander.
That's the one. So then there's like a behind the scenes image of me looking like a bit of an idiot holding that in front of my face. I mean, to get the effect from the sun coming through the blinds, he used a light, which I didn't really think was possible. So they might seem like small little things, but he's very creative. And then he shows exactly how he does it, which I think a lot of people kind of want to hide that and keep it for themselves, whereas he shares the whole process. So yeah, he's a very talented guy. I would definitely check him out. Another guy is a videographer called JD Pearson. So he doesn't upload an awful lot of what he does, but he definitely has a different vision to a lot of videographers. I find a lot of them are just doing this whole scantily clad woman thing with like close-ups of their, what areas. Whereas this guy manages to film beautiful people and they still look like humans. They're not over-sexualized. And he also does a lot of coaching as well. And a lot of his Instagram posts, he doesn't write a caption where it's just a bit witty or something. He's sort of quite honest and open and quite inspirational. So he's definitely another person to check out.
And in terms of the people that you are aiming to work with, you said you wanted to improve to the point where they would work with you. Any of those names? So
on Instagram, they are called Clint, CLINT. So they're a photographer and videographer. They do a lot with the brand called Gooseberry Intimates, which is like very, very pretty girly lingerie. And he's just completely changing the game, I think, in terms of the content that he puts out there for them. Just really cool, vibey stuff. Just very talented. And yeah, I really, really want to work with him, but I don't think I'm quite sort of cool enough yet. So I'll work on that.
Is he English? Is he based in England?
He does post a lot in the States, but there's also been stuff from London. So I think he moves around a lot.
I see. Well, you could just do what a lot of people do, where you add a different location to where you actually were to make yourself seem like you're international.
It
definitely happens.
You write internationally published. If I see that, I'm like, I'm not following you. Cringe.
Yeah, it's bad. It's pretty much the go-to of, I just started to feel really good about my work. Is you're like, oh, I'm going to put internationally published in my bio with absolutely no proof of it. And, if you actually ask them to... Sorry, go on.
If people actually are, they don't tend to write that. I mean, they're already so cool and famous and successful. They just don't need to tell people.
Are you trying to tell me that Emily Ratajkowski doesn't have internationally published in her Instagram bio?
I don't think she does.
Right. So there's a couple of things we have to clear up pretty severely. Number one, quick fire round. Who is it that keeps suggesting that you run in videography projects? Because I feel like it's you.
So funny. Obviously, there was someone I was working with all the time where we did that, and I'm no longer working with them. So I thought maybe the whole running thing would stop. And then the first videographer I worked with since then, we're in Marbella, and he was like, could we do some running shots? And I'm not lying. You popped into my head, and I thought, oh God, if he sees this, he's going to take the piss out of me.
Oh, absolutely. I've never seen someone twist so many times when they run, and you run almost like you're making fun of Phoebe out of Friends.
I feel like I've been tricked because they always tell me I have a nice run. And someone even said that the way I threw the flower in the most recent video I put up from a trip with SM International, they were like, that really makes me like you as a person. And I thought, that says more about you than me, but thank you.
Yeah, no, the way you run actually makes me dislike you as a person. I'm not going to lie. Your running is off-putting to the highest extent. Next question, videography or photography, if you could only do one from now on?
Videography.
Why?
I definitely have ADHD. I feel it just gives me more freedom to be slightly more in control as well. Oh, I don't know if that's true, because obviously if I'm working with someone like you, I'll just flow through my poses and it will almost be like I was creating a video anyway. But I just think it gives me a little bit more freedom to suggest my own ideas, like, oh, let's run down there, or let's use that as a backdrop.
Let's run.
Let's run and look like Phoebe from Friends.
Kind of. Like you're trying to be Phoebe from Friends, but you're not quite getting the style right. And as far as like brands that you've worked with, brands that you want to work with, obviously the vape stuff is completely mind-blowingly difficult for me to get my head around why that's a thing. But what brands do you wish you could work for, or are you aiming to work for?
I love the Balenciaga trainers. I'd love to work with them. I'd love to be doing Boohoo Pretty Little Thing more often. I only do e-com for them sometimes, but I'd love to do an actual lifestyle campaign where you're, on a billboard or on the video for their stuff. Oh, and Poly as well. I love them.
And just for the fun of it, because we're quarantined, brands you wouldn't work for?
Oh, the one who was really rude to me 2 days ago. Shall I shame them on here?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's have a look. Yeah, they were so rude. I offered them a free collab because of quarantine, and they said, we don't ever pay anyone anyway, and we only work with people who are following us. And I was like, well, I can quite easily follow you. Oh, God, brands who I wouldn't want to work with. Well, like I said, anything that's weight loss focused, I wouldn't. And I mean, I don't want to be horrible. I think it's great that people are exercising, but are you fucking bored of watching people do press ups on your story? Because I sure am. So let's just say I don't want to work with any gym brands either.
Yeah, I have to say there's two things that have been absolutely impossible to deal with during this horrible pandemic, which obviously has huge scope to cause lots of people suffering. I am so sick of TikTok videos, and I am so sick of people doing press ups.
Yeah, I second that. I did sort of dabble in TikTok to see if I could get one over, and I can't bear them. And the amount of people who think they can dance, they're not even doing it in time. I can't bear to see them. Like, just stop it or just keep it on the app. I don't want to see it on Instagram.
I had someone actually say to me that I shouldn't have a problem with it because it's just people having fun. And I was like, that's fine. Why does it have to go on the internet? Why does everything people do have to go on the internet? Why can't people just enjoy stuff?
Also, are they really having fun? I just don't believe they are. I think they want to look like they're having fun, and the real fun they have is scrolling through how many views it got, and it's all people who hate them anyway. So stop it.
It's just people ironically sharing them and making fun of them.
Yeah. The cringier you are, the more sort of viral they go. If people not notice that.
Well, of course, if you look at something like American Idol or, X Factor, it's always like the most watched parts of the series are always the ones where you get the complete weirdos that have no self-awareness and are clearly planted there to make, you cringe and laugh at them. And, that's what people find funny.
someone said to me, oh, what are your story views? Because mine are this, and theirs skyrocketed mine. And I was like, yeah, but that's because people can't believe that you're humiliating yourself in this manner. I was like, that's not something to be proud of. So yeah, not always. I mean,
you could definitely like up the views that you have if you were to just like murder a cat because of the shock value, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good thing. Exactly.
I think that's a very good point.
It's one of the most hard riddles to solve with social media. Why so many people that are attractive with very few clothes on have so many followers? I think it just must be that they have the best ideas.
Is that what it is?
I think it must be. I'm racking my brain trying to figure it out, and that's where I've landed.
I think it's a shame, actually. I think people need to realise that you're better off having a small community of people who either monetize what you do or look up to you and then you're doing something that's more true to yourself than just to constantly sort of get your body out. Because even I've noticed the more sort of fashion-led stuff I do or portraits, it won't get as many likes. But what am I going to not post that because of it? No, of course I'm not.
One thing I will say is you just said a small community that will monetize what you do or look up to you. That is a cult you're describing.
So if you'd like to join my cult, we're getting jackets next week. Just email me at...
Yeah, everyone drink the Kool-Aid and ascend off to a rocket. Very quickly, everyone needs to know where to find you, even though everyone knows where you are. Where can we find you? Do you have a website yet? That's the point.
I did have, but it's under new maintenance, so we'll just leave that.
Okay.
It's a shame I haven't opened the YouTube channel because then I could have sort of said that here. But no, yeah, you can find me at Poppy Haskell on Instagram.
Lovely stuff. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
I won't make it easy for you now. You got 2 minutes of my time, and I don't really break too easily, but I'm worth it, 'cause I'll slip into your dreams tonight. Oh, so give me your all. I'll take it to Mars. Oh, I'll stick like glue inside your mind. Just watch me break in your sweat. You're falling into me, touch me. I swear you would do anything that I want, so keep us awake till the dawn. Baby, feel free. I wanna make you sweat on me. I wanna make you sweat on me. I got you wrapped around my finger, but don't you try to call me tomorrow. There's nothing personal in having a little fun. You wait and see if it's worth